President Trump's phone call to a mother and a widow of an American soldier recently killed in Africa has dominated headlines, but the news media has done relatively little to explain why and where U.S. troops are operating on the African continent. RT America producer Joseph Ricci takes a closer look.
On October 4th, 4 U.S. troops were ambushed and killed by ISIS militants in the African nation of Niger. The attack has raised uproar on Capitol Hill.
But the overarching question is, what are we doing in Niger?
The circumstances that happen in Niger, what is the scope of our involvement there?
Yeah.
Do we need an authorization of the use of military force?
But the U.S. has troop presence throughout the African continent. American soldiers and bases are currently in 13 sub-Saharan countries under U.S. Africa Command. The French also have a significant presence in Africa, particularly in the country's former colonies. The map of Africa is once again starting to resemble the colonial situation in the 19th century. But what role are foreign troops playing in Africa?
You know, again, while the stated goal is fighting terrorism, I think the real goal, truthfully, is, geopolitical expansion of the U.S., which seems to be a goal in and of itself to essentially rule the world. We have, about 1,000 military bases in the world in about 138 countries. And of course, the goal is to be able to secure and control Africa's vast resources.
Now, to the dismay of military planners in Washington, the Chinese are a permanent military presence in Africa. Just this year, the Chinese opened their first foreign military base in Djibouti.
Generally speaking, whatever you say about China, their intervention there, if that's what you want to call it, is much more peaceful than the U.S.'s. That is to say, yeah, they want resources too. They want some corporate penetration in Africa. But instead of shooting their way to get it, they build hospitals, build roads.
But American military interventions on the continent have failed to bring the promised stability to Africa. In fact, it was NATO's destruction of Muammar Gaddafi's government in Libya which led directly to the rise of ISIS in Niger.
If you look at a map, Niger is adjacent to Libya. And we know that, again, after the 2011 invasion by the Western powers, ISIS gained large control over Libya and then spread to other countries like Niger.
U.S. AFRICOM is now expanding its operations against ISIS and Boko Haram in Africa. All this means the news media might soon be talking about Africa as the new Middle East. Joseph Ricci, reporting from Washington, D.C. for RT.